greetings from Perth City, Australia. And wait a minute, did you know that Australia is 13 times the size of Kenya, yet Kenya's population is twice that of Australia? Well, despite those differences in population and size, the two countries have quite a lot in common.
Kenya is a top 10 source market of students.
There are so many options here for them. There are so many opportunities for them.
We have exclusive interviews with the High Commissioners of the two countries.
We estimate that there are about 21,000 Kenyans studying or living here in Australia.
The biggest mine in Kenya is owned by an Australian company.
We interviewed the ambassadors on the sidelines of a conference on oil, gas and energy. We will be bringing you the significance of that conference in our subsequent show. But for today, ties between Kenya and Australia, and we begin with our fact sheet. Australia is the 6th largest country by landmass in the world. Its land area is about 7,700,000 square kilometers, while Kenya's is only about 580,000 square kilometers. Australia has 6 states. Its population is estimated at 25 million, about half of Kenya's population. In terms of population density, Kenya has 92 people per square kilometer, while Australia has only 3 people per square kilometer. Australia is generally arid and semi-arid. Most people live around the eastern and southeastern coastlines. The capital city of Australia is Canberra. While Kenya has only one time zone, Australia has 3. The time difference between Nairobi and Perth City is 5 hours. During summer, Sydney is 8 hours ahead of Nairobi, but during winter, the time difference changes to 7 hours between the two cities. Regarding the currency, the exchange rate of the US dollar to Australian dollar is about 1.5. 1 Australian dollar is equivalent to about 70 Kenya shillings. Australia gained independence in 1901 from the Federation of UK colonies. The country's first inhabitants, the Aboriginal people, are believed to have migrated from Asia tens of thousands of years before the arrival of British settlers in 1788. In terms of economy, Australia is a significant exporter of natural resources, energy and food. And on a light note, mention kangaroos, and what comes to many people's mind is Australia. This is because kangaroos are indigenous to Australia. Mining is one of Australia's most well-established sectors and a key area of economic ties between Africa and Australia, and Kenya is at the heart of that cooperation. This is exemplified through the annual Africa Oil, Gas and Energy Conference that takes place in Australia as a platform for sharing opportunities in the sector between Africa and Australia. This year's event was held in Perth from 2nd to 3rd September. The theme of the conference was Connecting Australia with Opportunities in Africa.
In this conference, we have learned so much. The technology, the work that has been put by this government to develop that sector. We are now working closely with them, and we hope they come and join us in developing our oil and gas sector and the mineral sector.
Our Western Australia has 900 companies in the petroleum equipment, technology and services sector that are the ideal partner for the development of the oil and gas and energy sector in Africa for the benefit of African people.
The annual conference, now in its 5th year, is the brainchild of Stephen Kuria, a Kenyan mining consultant in Australia who is the chairman of the Kenya-Australia Chamber of Commerce and also the managing director of Australia Africa Energy and Minerals Institute.
We saw a vacuum that a lot of people in Australia didn't know about Africa, especially in Kenya. So, and we are seeing where the Australian oil and gases and mining is quite huge and quite progressive. So, and we saw that Kenya we just start discovering oil, also just in East Africa by itself. So we wanted to see where we can, is an equilibrium point, where we can bring people from Australia to come there.
Alison Charters, the Australian High Commissioner to Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania and Uganda, attended the conference.
So I think it's wonderful that there are networking opportunities and opportunities like this conference to share experiences between Kenya and Australia or other countries in Africa and Australia. You know, obviously we've done some capacity building through an Australian government supported program in Kenya for the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. But there's a lot happening between the private sector as well to share expertise, to encourage more investment from here into Kenya. So yeah, there's much more that can be done in that space.
Kenya and Australia are both members of the Commonwealth.
The biggest mine in Kenya is owned by an Australian company. It's Base Titanium, a subsidiary of Base Resources. That's in Kwale County, mineral sands mine. Besides that, there's also investors in tourism, as I mentioned, and some in agriculture, some who are supporting agribusiness, the agricultural sector in Kenya. We have traditionally also exported wheat and aluminium and certain car parts, and that's changing over time, of course. But we're looking at other areas that we can also increase our two-way trade.
And according to Kenya's High Commissioner to Australia, Isaiah Kabira, apart from mining, there are many other issues that define the relationship between the two countries.
We have therefore added the component of agriculture, the component of education, research, and also the issue of diaspora, because at the end of the day, the diaspora are the most important cog in the wheel of relations between Australia and Africa.
According to Kabira, Kenya has defined the relations through trade, tourism, education, agriculture, health, mining, and security.
Our target really has been to increase the trade. We have seen increased trade between Kenya and Australia in the last few years. Kenya is currently the biggest exporter of flowers into this market. We are first, and Ecuador and Colombia are second, so that's one big product that we're exporting here. Kenyan coffee now is beginning to come here in a big way, plus Kenyan tea, and this time not through Europe, because before the products used to be flown to Europe and then brought over here so we're encouraging that direct trade. And of course, there are also opportunities for investments. We are trying to encourage the supermarkets here in Australia to take a bigger chunk of Kenyan tea and Kenyan coffee directly from Kenya and not through Europe.
It is against this background that the Australia-Kenya Business Exhibition and Conference is held annually in Australia after the Mining, Oil and Gas Conference. The conference aims at bringing Kenyan business focus to Australia.
Well, one of the things I like to emphasise, of course, when in Kenya is the sharing of the Indian Ocean. We have an amazing resource that we must protect, conserve, but of course we can harness the blue economy, and I know Kenya had an excellent conference last year on the sustainable blue economy, and we're both members of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, both Kenya and Australia. So it's a resource that we must both protect, but I think it also highlights that we're actually not that far apart. There's this perception that Kenya and Australia are a long way apart from each other. But if you stand on the coast of Kenya and stand on the coast of Western Australia, you know, that is a shared resource. We're not that far away, really.
Then there is the area of education, the third most important export of Australia, and currently Kenya is the largest source of international students from Africa.
It is, absolutely. And I mentioned the Australia Awards program, which is our Australian government scholarship program, which focuses on masters and short course awards. But actually the greatest numbers are Kenyans who come to Australia to study themselves, you know, they're privately funded. And it's really wonderful for me. Every week in Kenya I hear from someone who has a daughter or a son or a cousin or a nephew studying in Australia, typically at tertiary level, but of course there are some who are pursuing technical and vocational studies. So yeah, education is very strong between our countries.
Kenyan consultants are playing a big role in the education sector here. One of the top education agencies is Options Education, whose director is Helen Maria, a former accountant who ventured into her own business.
Mainly what we promote is Australia as a destination for our students in Kenya, because there are so many options here for them, there are so many opportunities for them, and we are so happy that we are able to do all that for them. And we've given them, they have gained a lot of confidence in us, and we have expanded our network from when we started to now, because we only started very small, and now we are able to operate in 5 different countries, including Australia and Kenya.
To give you a picture of the presence of Kenyan students here, Flinders University in Adelaide City has about 100 Kenyan students, while Edith Cowan University in Perth City has about 300.
My name is Lawrence Kipruto. This guy just come from Eldoret, a place called Alat. That's my place, I can say that is my village. I'm proud to be here at HCC or Edith Cowan College. It's a very nice institution to be.
We are one of Australia's largest nursing schools, and nursing has been attractive for Kenyan students to come here, to learn here, to seek opportunities to practice as a nurse in the Australian context. I think has contributed to the success. We're increasingly seeing Kenyan students joining other courses across the university.
You know, these students bring us so much in terms of the multiculturalism, the sharing of their experiences, and the connections for when they go home. So
they become your ambassadors.
They become our advocates and our ambassadors, but a lot of them end up in very influential positions in their home country. That's great for the Australia relationship with those countries as well.
While in Perth City, we got a moment to get a bite at a barbecue that brought together the Kenyan community in Australia. It happens every year. Well, that and more right after the break. Welcome back. This is Kenya-Australia Ties, and there is some barbecue coming. But before we get there, let's begin by understanding what is the Kenyan community in Australia known for.
There's people who came here as professionals who got sponsorship by various companies to come and work here directly. The others who have come here as students. There are some who come here as students and go back home. A number of them also do remain here when they get sponsored by companies to remain here. The others who get permanent resident status and work towards getting citizenship of Australia. Of course, really our work is to determine and to work with these Kenyans to see what's best for them and what their career path is. We estimate that there are about 21,000 Kenyans studying or living here in Australia, mainly in Western Australia, and of course in the big cities, Melbourne and Sydney.
Now, how about a barbecue on a nice sunny day? Yes, Kenyans in Australia are known for such come-together events, and this particular one in Perth on Sunday 8th September was organized by the Kenyan community in Western Australia in collaboration with Kenya's High Commission.
This is a platform whereby Kenyans come to meet together and get to know each other and interact. So there is that perspective of ku-interact, kujuana, kujua we unatoka wapi, unaishi wapi. And again, you know, the Kenyan spirit. I love one thing about Kenyans here in WH Alex. One thing about Kenyans is that anytime one of us has got a problem, we come in full force. we don't see what we call tribe. As long as you're a Kenyan, we come in and step in to help you and make sure that you settle down and you get the right directions and advices, because sometimes it's very difficult for someone to come here and settle and get into the system quickly.
I want to thank Kenyans living both in Australia and working in Australia and New Zealand. I want to thank them for being true ambassadors of our country. Kenyans are known here for their discipline, they are known here for their hard work, they are known here for their timekeeping, and wherever I go I get very good results and very good reports on Kenyans' good attitude at work. They report to work on time, they are disciplined, so mine is to really encourage them to continue in that way, because a good report of one Kenyan leads to another Kenyan being invited to work in a company, to study in a university. Really, our children have become global citizens, and when somebody aspires to go and work or study abroad, we can only try and encourage them. I think what I always tell them is to be disciplined. Australia is a country that rewards discipline and punishes indiscipline.
You do your research, find out more. Any agent that will tell you you need to have money, you need to have pocket money, you need to pay for your rent, you need to know that before you settle you have to hustle, you have to have a hardship, like a very dry kind of a season whereby you don't see any money but you have to spend money. That is the correct person. But if somebody tells you, no, you go to Australia, there's a job waiting for you, or there's a taxi waiting to pick you at the airport and a free accommodation, run away.
Indeed, the emphasis here is that don't just go abroad for the sake of it, and be aware that violating your visa status has consequences. David Njau, a Kenyan immigration consultant based in Perth City, says the system will catch up with you.
When you come with a visitor's visa, you're only allowed to visit and then go back. Sometimes you can be lucky to get through the system using the right channel. You can get a student visa or other work visas. But mainly, visitor's visa, you're only allowed to visit. You're not allowed to work at all, not even any job.
If you jump the visa,
if you
overstay?
Oh, if you overstay, they will find you.
What are the consequences?
Well, they deport you, definitely. The first put you in detention. That's the first thing. The law says if you're found without a visa, if you're unlawful in the country, the first thing they do is they detain you. Mm-hmm. They have to detain you. Whether it is temporary or not, they have to pick you up, detain you, and then arrange for you to leave.
According to Njau, immigration issues are key to the Kenya-Australia ties.
What happens is as many people break the law in a particular country, for example, Kenya, then they get rated. For example, Kenya is currently sitting on level 3, which is probably the lowest level you can be. This makes other people who want to get visas, even if they're genuinely wanting to get visas, harder for them, because now the immigration will be looking at the documents closely than they would have done before. Previously, we had a streamlined visa where you didn't even require a bank statement to come into the country. Now, almost all students from Kenya will require to show a bank statement. And it's not small money, it's quite a bit of money you have to show.
Still on the Kenya-Australia ties, the Kenyan High Commissioner had some good words for Kenyans when I asked her what Australia can learn from Kenya.
Kenya stands out to me as a country that is innovative and entrepreneurial in its spirit. Kenya's the home of mobile money, and place that a country the world looks to for its innovation in that space. Financial technology, mobile banking services. Australia can learn a lot from that entrepreneurial spirit, and the young people and the energy and enthusiasm they have for startups, and the way that they don't see barriers, they just say, no, I've got an idea and I'm going to harness the partnerships to make those happen. And I hope young Australian entrepreneurs also can connect with Kenyan entrepreneurs and just see that the sky's the limit. I love Kenya. Kenya is a wonderful country, and I'm learning something new about Kenya every day. I'm currently taking Kiswahili lessons, so I see habari, yako. Yeah, so early days on the language. I should have started earlier.
Finally, one of the things that could further boost the ties between Kenya and Australia is direct flights. Currently, there is none. To fly between the two countries, one must connect through South Africa, Mauritius, Dubai, or via Oman and Malaysia.
It's something that Kenya's High Commissioner to Australia and I have spoken about a number of times. Obviously, it would be wonderful to one day have a direct flight between Nairobi and a capital city of Australia. There's not current plans by an airline, but something I think for us to certainly aspire to, down the track, hopefully not too far in the future. Because I would think it will also, not only will it provide more opportunities for business people to travel back and forth, but of course our government representatives will make travel between our countries much faster and more efficient.
It is our dream that Kenya Airways can one day fly into Australia, because actually the shortest route from Africa to Australia is Nairobi to Perth. It's shorter than from Dubai or from Johannesburg. So when we have more airlines flying from Africa to Australia, it's going to make things much easier.
Well, Australia may appear geographically so far from Kenya, but the relationship between the two countries defies that distance. That's how we end our show today. And remember, we've spared details of the significance of the Oil, Gas and Energy Conference that took place here in Perth City for our next show, that is next week. For now, I leave you with some images of my experience and interaction with the Kenyan community in Australia. Bye-bye.